Hi, welcome to Relish Books. Today I'm talking about Watership Down by Richard Adams. This is one of those classics that I've always known about, as long as I can remember, but never got around to reading. I think one of the reasons was, for one thing, I thought it was longer than it was. It is a long book, considering the subject matter. If you haven't read it, it can seem long. But I don't know, this copy from Barnes & Noble is really nice. I don't know what was up with the copy that was on the shelf in my parents' home, because it looked like it was like that thick. I don't know if it was like large print or what, but it looked enormous. So it is kind of a long book. This one's almost 500 pages, and it is very tightly written for the most part. There's a fair amount of dialogue, but even so, most of the pages look like this, where there's not a lot of spacing. So, it's a long book, but not that long. It's a pretty easy read. It's very gripping, very suspenseful. The plot is always moving right along, so it was not hard to read. I think that was one of the things that put me off, though. I was like, it's a book about rabbits, and it's super long. I just don't really feel like reading it. I always feel like I'm not interested in books about animals. Like, as a kid and as an adult, I'm like, oh, it's about animals. I don't know if I want to read it, which is weird, because when I actually do read that kind of stuff, I usually really like it. I don't know if Winnie the Pooh really counts. That's kind of different, but that's one of the best books ever for adults or kids. The Winnie the Pooh stories. The Wind in the Willows, one of the best books ever. For a little bit younger, like Beatrix Potter's really good. Animal stories are good, but I don't know. I feel like, especially as an adult, they just don't draw my interest. My favorite genre is realistic fiction, with people. So animal stories aren't usually what draw me. A lot of girls are really into like horse books and that kind of thing, and I'm just not that much. But this book is special. I think it's a classic for a lot of reasons. There is something very unique about it. I think part of it is that it is a book about rabbits. And while Richard Adams did create the story for his daughters, it was a story that he was making up and telling them, starting on a road trip. And then I assume, over the years, he's telling them this story. And then it was actually them that encouraged him to write it down to make a book. But even though it was a story for children, it is not written like a children's story. I don't know how old his girls were, but it's not written in the style of a children's book. It's not super complicated, but it's not that simplistic style. It's written like an adult novel, and it works like an adult novel. And it's a book about rabbits, but these aren't cutesy rabbits. They are, even though they have special intelligence for sure, and to a certain extent, the way he mixes the natural world, trying to keep things very real, very natural, while giving his animals, obviously, extra intelligence, extra emotion, morals, loyalty, these things, it's very much the dangers and the challenges of the natural world. It's violent and kind of gory and graphic at times. The rabbits get into fights with other rabbits, with predators, shot at by humans, all these things. It's not just like a happy little story. It's very suspenseful. Has a lot of tension. That's something that I think I wasn't really expecting, was how fast-paced the plot was going to be. I don't know why. A story about rabbits actually should be kind of fast-paced, I guess. But, very fast-paced. Really good characters. At first, one of the things that I like about it, too, was kind of at first, I wasn't really into any of the characters. I was kind of these guys are all kind of annoying. I thought Fiver was so annoying. And he was. He didn't grow on me that much. I like him a little better by the end. And it's like, okay, yeah, you know stuff, but you're still so annoying. Hazel grew on me a lot. I still don't love him, but he's good. I really like the supporting characters. Bigwig, obviously, it's like the best character. I really love Dandelion, Blackberry, those guys. He does a really good job too. Like at the beginning of the story, you can recognize these characters by their different names. But other than like the main 3 rabbits, like they're a bunch of rabbits. It's kind of hard to distinguish personalities, but I think over the course of the book, he does a really good job of that, distinguishing these rabbits by their different personalities without making it over the top. Each of them having their strengths and their different talents that they all, use for the good of the group and with their different parts in their big plots and plans and all that kind of stuff. I think something else that's special about the book, something that I don't normally like in books. I was trying to think of examples, and I can't actually think of any like titles. I feel like it's on the edge of my mind, some books that have done this, but I can't think of titles. But I generally don't care for it in books when it's going along with the story. It's very action-filled, and then there's breaks in the story where a character tells another story. But a huge part of this book, it's broken up into sections, and in each of these sections there's at least one. I think it's just one in every section. There might be 2 in like one of them, but I think it's just one in every section. There's like this chapter that is one of the rabbits telling a story, because storytelling is a big part of their rabbit culture, and they have a whole history of legends. They have their whole religious system. They believe in like this creator who created everything, but then there's like a lord of the rabbits who's like the rabbit hero. He's like the hero of all their stories is this rabbit whose name I'm not going to try to say, because in rabbit it means the prince with 1,000 enemies or something like that, or the one with 1,000 enemies. But they never translate the name like they do with some of the others, so it's always in rabbit language, and I'm not going to try to say it. But anyway, they have this hero rabbit, and each chapter of this storytelling is his adventures. And he even says, I forget whether it's in an introduction or if it actually says it straight up in the book, that he's kind of linked to like Burr Rabbit. And Burr Rabbit could maybe be like a different name for this same rabbit, and a lot of their stories kind of overlap. They did some of like the same tricks type stuff like that, which was fun that he acknowledged that instead of it just being like, oh, that guy's kind of like Burr Rabbit. He's actually like, oh, they're kind of like the same character, different stories. So I like that a lot. Those stories though, like I said, I don't normally like it when a book's kind of broken up like that, but I think it works so well in this book to tell more about the culture of these animals and who they are. And also they're so well written and so much fun. Those stories were kind of like my favorite part of the book. Every time we get to one, it'd be all exciting because Dandelion, like the storyteller in the group, is a really great storyteller. The tone in those stories is a little bit different from the way that the rest of the book is written. It's written more lyrically, more like fairy tale language, kind of like Once Upon a Time, and very imaginative and kind of metaphorical ideas that were so fun and really so beautifully done. And the story of the Black Rabbit of Inlay was genuinely scary. Like, I was reading it and I was like, man, this is a great, like, really scary story. And it's not just scary, but it's like, it's brutal too. And yeah, it just ties in really nicely. Like, each story is the rabbit, telling a story, but it usually connects also with something that the rabbits are doing. And in that case, Bigwig's about to go and do something very dangerous, where he might have to sacrifice a lot for the good of the rabbits. And he kind of requests this story. I think not so much to, like, tell the other rabbits, like, this is what I'm doing for you, but kind of like to give himself courage, because in that story, this like rabbit hero is really willing to sacrifice absolutely everything to save his rabbits. He keeps like trying to make these deals with the Black Rabbit of Inlay, and he keeps making these wagers and losing them. So like his tail is cut off, his whiskers are pulled out, his ears are cut off. It's pretty dark, but yeah, it's really, really good at the same time. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing what he did with this story. Yeah, I really liked it. It was I feel like it was kind of what I expected it to be, knowing bits and pieces about it over the years, but more enjoyable and better. Like, I knew it was probably going to be good. It's a classic, but it's really good. Everybody should read it. Richard Adams had a hard time getting someone to publish it for a long time. And I think it's probably because publishers probably didn't know how to market it. You can't really market it as a children's story because it's really not, but you can't, but like, are adults going to want to read a story about rabbits? But obviously they did. It's been, bestseller for years and years. But yeah, just really good. To not spoil anything, there was like one big thing that was different from what I was expecting. I had a big plot point in my mind. I can't say what it was without giving stuff away. I had this thing in my mind that I was sure happened in the book. I don't know where I got that idea, if it's an idea from the movie maybe, which I haven't even seen. I don't know. I had this idea in my mind of a thing that was going to happen, that I was sure was going to happen, so I was just like waiting the whole book for this thing to happen, and it never did. And I wasn't like disappointed, but I was kind of like, oh, I really felt like this thing would add to the story, even though, I don't know, it never existed apparently. But yeah, that was kind of the one thing that I was like, oh, that thing never happened. I don't know why I thought it was going to, but yeah, other than that, it kind of fulfilled my expectations. Nothing too shocking, but it was really, really good. Definitely recommend reading it. The writing's really good, straightforward, but also creative and clever. Yeah, a great book. You should read it, even if you aren't, like me. Even if you don't feel like you're super into animal stories, it's definitely worth the read, and you should get through it pretty quick because it's very gripping. So, those are my thoughts about Watership Down. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.